last week I booked 6 new sessions, and this week another 3 or 4, I believe. So within 2 weeks, 10 new sessions. So that's, between people training once or twice a week. So I'm consistently growing about that. I'm pretty much at capacity. I can't really take any more clients. My nights are packed. My mornings are packed, 12, 13 hours a day.
Welcome to Corporate Warrior, the podcast that brings you the best advice on how to improve your health, optimize performance, and maximize productivity. With your host, Lawrence Neal.
This podcast is brought to you by HitUni.com. HitUni.com are a provider of amazing online courses for high-intensity training qualifications. HitUni comes highly recommended by the best in the field, including Body by Science co-author Dr. Doug McGuff, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, and trainer and founder of Bay.com, Drew Bay. It was founded by my friend, author, and longtime personal trainer Simon Shawcross, who's also been a guest on the podcast. Simon has 15 years experience training clients and has supervised over 15,000 high-intensity training workouts. Using knowledge from experts like Skylar Tanner, Dr. James Steele, Dr. Ellington Darden, HitUni is a goldmine for learning everything to do with high-intensity training. The courses are delivered online through the website, where you can learn via a variety of multimedia materials at your own pace. There's online support and a discussion forum where you can share ideas and ask for help. To learn more about high-intensity training and improve my own results, I started their personal trainer course. The content is amazing, the courses are really easy to follow, and each section is organized into bite-sized chunks that give you a real sense of achievement after you complete each one. I should also mention there is a DIY course. So this is the course for you if you're not necessarily a personal trainer, but you want to learn more about high-intensity training and how to implement it for maximum benefit in your own exercise regime. To get your exclusive Corporate Warrior 10% discount on any course you purchase, simply head on over to hituni.com, that's HITUNI.com, and enter the coupon code CW10, that's CW and the number 10. So again, head on over to hituni.com, pick your course, and enter the coupon code CW10 for 10% discount. Thank you for your support. This podcast is brought to you by Vital Exercise, a one-of-a-kind personal training facility in the UK, owned and run by world-class personal trainer Ted Harrison. For over 30 years, Ted has been very successful in helping people achieve great results. And if you've seen the blog posts for his episodes on this podcast, you will see that he walks the walk. And at 56, he's a beast and in excellent shape. Operating from a high-intensity training base, Ted uses an eclectic mix of training styles to optimize results for his clients. Ted put me through one of the best workouts of my life and is someone I go to for advice often. To book a free consultation either at his facility in Essex in the UK, or to find out more about his virtual coaching, which includes personalized training, nutritional and motivational advice, please go to corporatewarrior.co/TED, where you can fill in a contact form or phone Ted directly. That's corporatewarrior.co/TED. Hi guys, I am Lawrence Neal and welcome to another episode of Corporate Warrior, the podcast that teaches you how to optimize productivity and health, career, business and lifestyle by interviewing the most effective people around today. So my guests include zero carb world record holders, health and fitness giants, high intensity training entrepreneurs and practitioners, athletes, sports scientists, New York Times bestselling authors and many, many more. My next guest is Jay Vincent, who joins me for a round 2. Jay is a nationally recognized personal trainer, health coach, and professional fitness model. As the owner and primary trainer at BioFit, Jay's mission is to instruct highly effective, time-efficient, and safe exercises for people of all ages, goals, and physical conditions. Jay has been featured on many popular podcasts, magazines, and has modeled for popular athletic companies such as Under Armour and MuscleTech. In less than a year, Jay has built a very successful high-intensity training business and is at maximum client capacity. We both agreed that it was an excellent idea to dig into the detail on exactly how he did it. Personally, I love detail, and I hate it when podcasts don't reveal all the how-to details. So in this episode, I make sure Jay gives you a formula for building a successful high-intensity training business, which includes the importance of the location, the importance of the free introductory session and client referrals, exactly how much it costs to start and run a high-intensity training business, and much, much more. Jay is very transparent in this episode and provides all of the numbers, including startup capital, running costs, monthly revenue, etc. And a high-intensity training business, if done right, can become or even exceed your own six-figure lemonade stand. I'm very excited to launch this episode, which was a real masterclass on starting and growing a high-intensity training business. We decided to stick to business on this one, but we have booked a part 2 to answer all of your high-intensity training questions and sort of general health and fitness questions. So sorry that I can't include those on this one, but I really just wanted to make this one about business. But as I said, we will expand on that in a part 3 together in the near future. So for all of the show notes and links for this episode and all episodes, please go to corporatewarrior.org. And don't forget to hang around at the end for your free gift. And now I give you the high-intensity training poster boy and entrepreneur, Jay Vincent. Jay, welcome back onto Corporate Warrior. Appreciate you doing this again and coming back on the show.
Thank you, Lawrence.
You're most welcome. And excited to learn about the business, how things are going since we last spoke. Looks like it's blowing up from what I'm seeing. And so just on that, I just wanted to kind of clarify something first. So last time we spoke, you were, I think, running Studio 2020. Is that still under ownership, or have you left that to do the BioFit studio? How's that kind of panned out?
Yeah, so I took over that studio because the owner had cancer, and he was looking for someone to run it while he was in quarantine. He was getting stem cell replacement therapy.
Yeah.
So he had to be, in his home. He couldn't leave because his immune system was so poor. So I ran the studio for about 4 to 6 months or so. I worked alongside him for a little while. But, I had every intention of becoming a partner or, buying it off of him because while I was running it, it grew substantially. And so towards the end, kind of spoke with him, and it wasn't something that he was really interested in anymore. So after that, I went down to New York City to work with Adam Zickerman at Inform Fitness for probably about 5 or 6 months or so. As a personal trainer, which was amazing. I got to learn, as a personal trainer. I was still living up in the capital region of New York State, Albany, and I was commuting down there a couple days a week. And that was a terrific experience. Got to learn a lot. Got to see how a high volume HIIT studio is run. I got to learn a little bit about the business aspect. Got to learn a little bit more about exercise science, and that was amazing. But it was always my dream to own my own studio. And the New York City life just absolutely is not for me.
Really?
So, so I decided, I had the idea in my head, but when I was ready, then I was going to follow through with it. And I felt ready. I felt that I knew enough about the business aspect. I felt that I could grow it because I've done it before. I've done it a couple times. So I just went for it. Found a location, a shopping center area with a lot of foot traffic. I'm near a couple hair salons, pizza parlor, laundromat, that sort of thing, in a relatively upper middle class town. And picked a good sign, good logo, good name. And as Doug McGuff says, if you build it, they will come, and they have surely come.
Excellent, man. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So some of these questions you might not be comfortable answering, and I totally get that, especially perhaps stuff around finances. So if I do ask any of those types of questions and you're not comfortable, just say and we can move on. But obviously, Gary posted a comment on Facebook, and he was very keen to learn more about how it all started and how you grew that business. So would you be able to start off just by going through kind of how you were able to build up the capital to start your facility and how you sourced that and that kind of thing?
Yeah. It's an interesting story, and I like to tell people because it wasn't easy by any means, but if you have if you have a high enough desire and drive to do it, you'll find a way. So that's what I always kind of kept in mind. If I want it bad enough, I'm going to find a way. So I've always been having this idea floating around in my head for, probably the last 4 years or so. So subconsciously and consciously, I was putting money away. I was saving, sort of for a rainy day type of thing. But, mostly deep down because I knew I wanted to own my own studio. So kind of fiddle with the numbers in my head. And what it seems is that, the overhead is relatively fixed. So the startup costs are not that high. So if you pick a place with a reasonable rent rate, pretty much what it comes down to is, tidying the place up, putting a floor in, getting your equipment, couple bathrooms, very basic. My studio is very basic. It's not highly decorated. I don't believe in that sort of thing. I believe, I try almost intentionally to make it as far from a traditional health club as possible because, a lot of people are coming here because they're dissatisfied with a traditional health club. So I don't have mirrors. I don't have music. I really don't have any wall decorations or anything like that because when you come into my studio, you're here for one thing. You're here to fatigue your muscles, train very hard, and get out. So, basically what it came down to is the landlord tidying up the place, me finding some equipment, moving it all in. And as soon as that happens, it's, the doors are open and it's ready to run. So what I did was I just kept putting money away and kind of figured what I could afford in terms of equipment. And it came down to just purchasing a couple things to tidy up the place, equipment, sign, an LLC, and boom, that was it. And then you're good to go. And, it doesn't take a huge amount of capital to get one of these things started. I mean, you can make them, if you wanted to make it look like Discover Strength, okay, that's a different story. But I mean, for the most part, it's, again, what Doug McGuff says, it's a 6-figure lemonade stand. It really is. I mean, it's fixed overhead, and it really comes down to your success comes down to what I believe is your personal communication skills, your interpersonal communication skills, your ability to communicate with clients, make them feel good, answer their questions, your likability, they have to like you, and your knowledge. I mean, I believe I know a fair amount about exercise, but I also believe I don't know shit. So I humble myself. I know enough to be able to sell the high intensity training principle and the idea to convince people and make them excited about it. But, I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means, but that is also very important. Your ability to be able to relay this information and how it makes sense and, how it's, pretty evident based on the research is very important because it takes a lot of convincing against traditional exercise beliefs. So I found that my ability to do that has helped me, excel. And then, of course, the third component, I do look the part. So there is that, survivorship bias component to it where people are going to tend to listen to people who look the part when it comes to exercise. So it has helped me. I intentionally do not spend a lot of time leveraging that because, again, I want to be, almost spitefully different than the rest of the fitness industry because just everything about the fitness industry drives me insane. I hate everything about it. So I try to be spitefully different, but at the same time, I do, include the way I look in some sort of marketing materials, but it's not like the traditional supplement company where you're curling a dumbbell and your shirt's off because that gives off the wrong impression. And I don't want clients coming in here thinking they're going to get ripped in 30 days or look like me, and I try to focus around more, this is a healthy thing that you do. If weight loss is your goal, great. We can tackle that. We can work on that. But, you're not going to be, a 62-year-old woman who's had 4 children and look like the cover of Women's Health. It's just not going to happen. But in terms of living a long, happy, healthy, productive lifestyle, this is going to be the absolute best thing you could do for yourself. So devote, 20 to 30 minutes, maybe even 60 minutes twice a week, and it's literally life-changing. So that's a message I try to relay to, new clients in my marketing efforts. Not so much the, get ripped, get some beach muscles, look good in your birthday suit kind of thing, because I think that just drives the wrong message, and that's why everybody's confused, honestly. So
yeah, and just to say, expert is a relative term. You got to remember, you are an expert, obviously, to those people that you work with and train. But then
right, yeah.
Expert to you is probably someone like Doug.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, I look up to Doug and Drew and Luke Carlson. I look up to them, as the experts. James Steele, James Fisher, of course.
Yeah.
I look up to them as the experts, and people may consider me an expert, and compared to the layman, sure, but compared to these guys, I don't know squat. I'm still learning, but which is great, because I feel, compared to what I knew 3 years ago, I looked at myself like I was a complete moron. I thought I knew what I was talking about. So the most humbling thing is realizing that you don't know everything, and we really don't know all that much. We have an idea of what causes muscle growth and that sort of thing, but we can't nail it down to fact. I mean, we're still trying to discover whether or not mechanical damage has anything to do with muscle growth, even though it seems as though it might. It may not. So compared to everyone I talk to, sure, I know a fair amount, but I'm still learning. I'm curious to know what I will know 50 years from now. I'll probably look back on this and say I was an idiot again. But, it's exciting.
So going back to you putting money away and saving up for this facility and business, are you able to reveal, how much it cost you, what you had to put away, what the investment looked like from a high level?
Yeah, sure. No, I have no problem doing that. So it was like, my rent is, around like $1,500 a month, $1,400 a month, something like that. And then, the air conditioning, lights, that kind of stuff is relatively fixed as well. The equipment, I think total was about $15,000. So what's that, about 10,000 pounds, something like that. About $15,000 for the equipment, some floor, which is a few $1,000s. So I would say total startup costs, probably 25,000, 25,000, keeping it relatively simple. I mean, but I start off with 10 pieces of equipment. I felt that's all I needed to get the job done. But as time goes on, I have every intention to, I've got some room behind the wall that's directly behind me, where there's another 1,000 square feet of space, which I intend to expand into, and use some plate loaded equipment like hammer strength, or some Nautilus plate loaded explode equipment too, just for people who are looking for that sort of thing. Still utilizing the high intensity training principles, but appealing to people who want sort of more of a rugged workout. And I like what Luke Carlson has done with Discover Strength with that as well. So I'm thinking that that's a pretty good idea. So it'll be probably around 15 to 20 pieces of equipment. But for now, This gets the job done. It gets it done very, very well.
It looks great from what I've seen in your videos.
Well, thank you.
So was that all your own money then? So you didn't look for any outside investors or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I just knew what I wanted. And I knew I was going to take a huge financial hit in the beginning, but high risk, high reward. I wasn't afraid. Yeah. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what I was good at. So I didn't really consider failure an option, because when you've invested your whole life savings into something, you're not going to let it fail. You're gonna bust your ass. So I'm doing 12, 13-hour days, and I'm making it happen. So yeah, it's I calculated the startup costs, about a year prior, and I just kept chipping away at it and just working towards it.
Awesome. That's interesting, because that was kind of your approach before. You come across as always more of a person who is kind of like, don't do it on the side and then transition. Just go for it. Just, because that's the motivation that you require to actually execute and work really hard. I think that can work really well. It's obviously very risky. And I don't think everyone perhaps should go for that, especially if they've got other responsibilities, like maybe families and things like that. But there is nothing like that motivation where you're all in, and that's like, that's the position I'm in now that I've moved to Ireland with my partner. With that move, I've decided to focus on corporate warrior full time. So it's like, well, it's make or break, I don't want to get one of those jobs,
Yeah.
So that's it.
I kind of like that mentality. It is different. I just turned 27 years old and I'm, single. I don't have that much school debt. And I'm in a good position to do this now. It would be ridiculous for me to wait 5 years when those things probably would change.
Yeah.
So there are certain scenarios where it would be, a bad idea. But if your lifestyle is conducive to trying this sort of thing, you got to go for it, because you're just going to make excuses on, it's going to be hard, or it's going to take a lot of money. All my family members said that. All my friends said that. Well, that's really hard, Jay. Well, yeah, I know. That's why I want to do it. People are afraid to do difficult things. They're afraid to challenge themselves, when that's where all personal growth lies. It's in challenging yourself and accomplishing it. And if you, fall down 9 times, get up 10. And just every time a failure is usually a blessing in disguise, because now you know how not to do something. So even though, I was, I'm pretty confident. So I was mildly, unsure if it would work, but at the same time, I told myself there's no way I'm not going to let it work, or let it not work. So there was a slight amount of doubt in my mind, but at the same time, I was so internally motivated that I just wasn't going to let that happen.
I think a key thing to underscore here is that you did in a way, well, you did pre-validate your business, because you had already been doing personal training. You knew how to do it. You knew how to generate more clients. So you were just taking that concept and doing it in your own studio. So it wasn't like you were going in blind. Is that fair to say?
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. That's absolutely true. I mean, if you had never trained, in a high intensity training studio, or been a personal trainer, that would be kind of rough, because there's a lot of things you learn along the way, because I've seen super slow just it didn't work with quite a few people. I noticed that if some people did super slow, it seemed as if they were relaxing on the eccentric phase, the negative phase of the range of motion, and that sort of thing. Like, I evolved out of super slow, and also motivating people through the exercises. That comes with practice. And I think that's something that may be able to be taught or learned, but it's something that you need to have, because, when the exercise gets very, very uncomfortable, again, your body is screaming at you to stop. And that is the exact moment when the exercise starts, stimulating a benefit. So being able to motivate people through that discomfort is absolutely crucial as a trainer. And the way you motivate people through that discomfort varies completely from individual to individual. So some people, if they're a go-getter and kind of like a high energy person, I will, egg them on. I'll yell at them sometimes, push, faster, that sort of thing. But then, I kind of determine this after the first couple of sessions during consultation. If they're kind of like a, more of a timid, soft-spoken person, then I use more of I try to sound safe. I'll say something like, okay, now I would like you to push as fast as you can for about 5 seconds. Just continue to push until the weight is whatever, something like that. And, kind of talk them through very calmly. So that, that's a good approach for some people. But if I were to do that to a former Marine, you would look at me like I'm crazy. So that, that kind of person. So I find that is crucial for your success as a trainer as well. And it doesn't have to be the typical bro gym thing, like get one more rep, you wimp, or something like that. Like that's ridiculous. But being able to motivate people through that sort of discomfort is crucial as well. And that's something I learned only from experience. I sucked at it in the beginning. But as you meet more people and you see different personalities, and you come up with ways of motivating people based on their personalities.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's something I've had a workout with Simon Shawcross and Ted Harrison, who have both been guests on this podcast, and they obviously both run their own studios in the UK, and they're just excellent trainers. Adam Budnick is another guy actually who I had on towards the beginning, who's a great personal trainer, and they just know what to say exactly the right time, and they make you perform so much better. And obviously they know what to say because they number one, they've been doing the training themselves for a long time. So they understand the nuances of the exercise. But again, like you, it's taken them probably a while to hone the ability to motivate people effectively, to get the most out of a given exercise. Yeah. So, just going back to you starting your business, I'm just curious, like, what was the lead time from you, let's say, quitting your job and then I guess putting a deposit down and actually like registering a company and then going live? Like, what was that lead time?
So I think I stopped working at Inform in December, and my studio was open April 1st. So I think December, I registered my business and got my LLC in January, found my equipment that same month. Most of what took a long time was getting the space ready. It seemed that it was, excessively slow to simply just kind of like clean the space up and put insulation and put a floor in. So that's really what took a long time. I mean, I had my equipment picked out, paid for, ready to be shipped, and I spent 8 to 10 weeks just waiting for the space to be done. I had the sign made, logo made, copywritten, and or trademarked rather, and everything was ready to go. I was just waiting for the space. So it really doesn't take a long time. I mean, as long as you know what you're looking for and exactly what you need. And in the beginning, I had a relative idea of everything I needed. It was relatively simple. So, I just knew I just pretty much for the most part just needed some equipment. And I checked out this. It's a guy in Santa Clarita, California, I believe is where he is, and he's a used MedX Nautilus broker. So I told him what I needed. He found it, sent me pictures. I said, that looks good, and paid for it, waited for the space to get done, and then just moved everything in. And it took, it took about, 4 months or so.
Okay.
Something around there. Yeah.
I love the website. It's very minimalist, which sits well with me. And
I'm a minimalist, let me tell you.
Slick. Yeah, I gathered. But no, I really like the way it's set up. And I like the fact that you don't have any pricing listed, which I assume is deliberate because you're trying to get people to go for the free session, aren't you, I suppose? And
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and it's called reciprocation. And any decent salesman or businessman knows what reciprocation is. If you give somebody something free, they feel the need to reciprocate and give you something back. So what I noticed is, bringing people in and spending time with them and training them, 9 times out of 10 they leave, with a personal training package because you spent so much time explaining these things to them and taking time with them and training them that they almost feel obligated to buy. So that's part of the reason I do that as well. And I've noticed over time when people ask how much a personal training session is or the package, whatever, as soon as you give them the price, they're no longer interested. I've never had anybody who, emailed me or called me and I told them the price up front. I've never had them even come in for the free session. I don't know if that's just me or if I just suck at telling them the price, but it seems as though they're looking for a reason not to do it. So when you tell them the price, they say, "Oh, well, that's too expensive." And that's it. So what I encourage them is a lot of the times when I get a new submission or a phone call or something, I completely ignore the question about the price, and I just have them come in and try it because they don't know what they're buying yet. So when they come in and they try it and they understand and they're like, wow, this is amazing, then that $50 whatever a session, the value is drastically improved based on what they felt. While if you go in blindly without ever experiencing this, you can't really justify it. So yeah, I center around, as you notice on my website, every page you go to says click now free session. And every time I post something on Facebook, it's click now free session. just kind of driving that through. And that's what seems to work.
And you collect emails that way too, I assume?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
Is that an effective way of getting emails, I suppose?
Yeah. I get most of my new clients just, through emailing on my website. And I seldom get phone calls. I do have my number right on the window, but in this day and age, people would rather
no one makes
write.
Phone calls. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more comfortable for them, and I'm okay with that. I'd rather speak on the phone, but whatever works for them. So I kind of notice what works best, and I try to focus most of my efforts towards that, of course.
So, do you know how many opt-ins you get, like, on a monthly basis through the website or through?
I'm not sure on a monthly basis. I mean, this last week I booked 6 new sessions, and this week another 3 or 4, I believe. So within 2 weeks, 10 new sessions. So it's between people training once or twice a week. So I'm consistently growing about that. I'm pretty much at capacity. I can't really take any more clients. My nights are packed. My mornings are packed. 12, 13 hours a day. But I do have an additional trainer who's a very smart young woman. And she, I'm teaching her the high intensity training principles. She's been a trainer for quite a while. It's kind of her passion. So she left her job as well to become a trainer. And I felt she would be a good fit because she's very receptive to what I have to say. A lot of personal trainers, I'm sure, as you know, they're kind of egotistical, mm-hmm. and they're kind of know-it-alls. So it's very tough to relay this information to somebody like that. So finding an additional trainer is kind of difficult because they need to be like a sponge, and they need to really dump out all the old fitness information. Willingly do that and absorb what you've got to tell them in order to be able to do this, or you'd come in and people would be doing flinging weight around, and that would drive me crazy. So I found a good additional trainer to take on the new clients now. So there will be just 2 of us in the studio.
Okay.
And 1 male, 1 female. That's good because some people would prefer to be trained by a male, some people a female. Yeah. She's older than I. She's in her 40s. So people may feel more comfortable with that as well. So I chose that intentionally. It kind of try to have all angles covered. And again, I would not have more than 2 trainers in my current space. And for the sake of keeping it private, because the reason people don't like going to the commercial gyms is because they're busy, they're loud, and people get embarrassed because they feel out of shape. So when you come in here, there's not even a mirror. You can't even see what you look like. So we take that whole lack of self-esteem part out of it, and the insecurities out of it, and people are much happier. So I would never have 3 or 4 trainers training all these people and make it busy, because I like to keep it very private. So for now, it's just me and 1 additional trainer, and for the most part, I'm packed, and she will be soon.
Awesome. But where do you go to look at the pump, like after the workout, Jay?
Lawrence, I'm over that.
No,
I don't need to look at my pump anymore. All I need to do is feel it, and I feel good. It's funny because the older I get, the more conservative I get with that sort of thing. It just gets old, and I don't know if it's part of seeing everybody else do it and it annoying me, or I'm just tired of it. But the whole gym bro thing, that has completely left my system. And even so, to this day, I'm only training once every 7 to 10 days, and I'm not doing split routines. I'm just, full, evidence-based resistance training protocol now. I used to do more of like I would say like a Mike Mentzer heavy duty style. I mean, not with his terrible form, of course, but a Mike Mentzer heavy duty style routine. And, I kind of got away from that. And from what I've noticed, there's no difference. I mean, I don't do bicep curls anymore, and my arms haven't gotten any smaller. Yeah. I don't really do tricep extensions anymore. Nothing there has changed. So I'm kind of doing, a 7 to 10 day full body workout, 1 set to failure. I do 1 drop set on 1 exercise, kind of depending on what I feel like doing it on. As a way to, first of all, I just don't have the time or desire, and second of all, I want to prove that once you've built a physique, you can train pretty darn infrequently to maintain it. And I'm kind of seeing how that's going. I've been doing that for about a month, and so far so good. I'm sure that was one of your next questions, my current training regimen, right?
Yeah, that let's pause that because I want to come on to that a bit later, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So going back to your, you obviously you got the client in for a free session. What are your packages? So what do you actually charge, if you don't mind me asking?
I started high. So I was starting my training sessions at $70 a session, which for this area, I mean, a typical half-hour session at a commercial gym from my research is about 50 to 60. So I said, okay, I want to stay around there, but I also want to undercut them. I want to charge less for a better workout in a private facility with a knowledgeable trainer. So what I did was I stick around $50 a session, and and the price will go down as packages go up, kind of thing. Right now I'm pretty much only doing like 12 session packages. And there are some people who are intimidated by the cost. A 12 session package at $50 a session is $600 that they have to pay for, 6 weeks of training, 6 to 12 weeks of training. And what I've noticed is people are kind of afraid to cough up that kind of money. So people often ask, well, can I pay week to week? And in the beginning, when I was growing, I allowed it simply to, get people through the door. Because the more people you get through the door, the more word of mouth spreads and the more referrals you get. But now I absolutely refuse to do that. And I'm sure a lot of other studio or gym owners know the reason as well. Is because, when you have somebody who wants to come and purchase a session every time that they come and train, they're gone after 2 weeks. They come 3-4 sessions and they give up because they start, because we've been so conditioned to believe that your body is going to change massively in just a month of training or 2 weeks of training, that when they don't see the results, they give up, and to them it's not worth the time or money. So I require or sell only just at least a 12 session package. And my reasoning is, listen, if you were investing that much money, you're going to get here because, under very few conditions will I return the money for that reason, because now they're forced to come do the training, and now they're motivated because, well, they spent all this money on this training. They might as well give it a shot. Right. And I found that also helps with adherence to diet, because I provide most of my clients, if they want it, a very basic diet guide. And the response I've gotten is, well, if I'm paying this much money, I might as well go all the way and follow the diet too. And I'm like, exactly. That's exactly what I want to hear. So as far as sessions go, you can't do the week to week thing because they're gone. You've got to do a package thing. You've got to let them, try this type of training for at least 6 weeks, because there will be changes. I will make sure there are changes, and for the most part, when I do that, they stay. They remain, with me for often a year plus. So that's kind of how my pricing structure works.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and it's that accountability factor and the investment, which is so critical as well, and it just makes sense. Are you comfortable kind of revealing like where you're at in terms of revenues at this time?
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm doing, probably around, I would say about 50 to 60 sessions a week. And that's kind of what I'm comfortable, doing at the moment. And I guess that's monthly revenue. I guess it's around, I don't know, 10 to 12,000 a month is what it seems to be, 10 to 14, something like that. But, it varies. It varies because especially in the summer, July was actually kind of slow. People go on vacations, people have things to do. The summers tend to be very slow, and it tends to pick up very heavily again in the fall and then throughout the winter. So, yeah, in terms of revenue, that's kind of where I am now. My goal is to, build my other trainer up as many sessions as she's comfortable taking, hopefully around 50 or 60 or so, and expand and hire one additional trainer. So there will be 3 of us, and hopefully bring that revenue up to about, 25,000, 30,000 a month is my goal.
Awesome. And that's a quite a. I mean, I'm not, as you know, I'm not a personal trainer myself, so I don't know the business all that well. But that sounds like it'd be pretty high, from what you've said, a pretty high profit margin, and like Doug says, a 6-figure lemonade stand.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's virtually no overhead. The machines, they don't need maintenance because they're used properly and under correct supervision. And the weight stacks are never banged down, the pins are never jammed in, that sort of thing. I lubricate them as often as they need to be. So everything, you're pretty much just paying for rent and electricity and air conditioning or heat is pretty much it. It's pretty easy. And then my scheduling software. So yeah, it's, the fixed overhead, it's pretty much the sky's the limit. And in terms of however many clients you want to train. But again, as demand goes up, as everything else, so my prices will increase, of course. I mean, if it's, if I'm taking 15 sessions a day and someone else wants to come on, I'll say, okay, but, you're paying this. I mean, this is the way it is. So,
yeah.
Eventually the prices will increase too. I think I'm in a very, very good area because, again, the location of your studio is pretty important. You don't want to put it, obviously, in a low-income area. I did my demographic research. I looked at all the areas around, and the city I was living in, Albany, average household income was about $55,000. The neighboring town, $65,000. There's a town north of me called Saratoga Springs where there's this high-end racetrack and very busy during the summer. It's supposed to be sort of a wealthy town, but their average household income was $65,000. So I found this town I'm in now called Clifton Park, and the average household income was $103,000 a year. So I said, so that's a pretty good spot. And I started doing other market research, and I compared it to, Midtown Manhattan. Although there are, millions of people in Manhattan, it was, similar to Midtown Manhattan. So I said, okay, well, this is a good area because people can afford it. And people do not want to drive out of their way for personal training because they don't like personal training. They don't like training, and they don't want to drive out of their way for something, that uncomfortable and inconvenient. So the whole point is make it as convenient as possible. So I found a shopping center in a relatively high income town next to where all the houses are, basically. So now I have plenty of my clients drive 5 minutes down the street, or they stop here on the way home from work and then they're right home afterwards, or early in the morning, they just come get their workout in, go home, change, eat breakfast, off to work they go. So I did a little bit of thinking when it came to determining where I wanted to put this place. And so far I chose a perfect spot.
What resource did you use to actually figure out the demographic and get that data? Like, where did you go?
I think it was called citydata.com.
Okay, cool.
I think I just sorted through a couple of websites just to get an idea. But I mean, those who live around this area, it's common knowledge that Clifton Park is one of the higher income towns, and it's there's a very busy highway that runs north and south in the capital region here, and it is directly, my shopping center where my place is right next to the exit. So even they have to travel on this, it's a 65 mile an hour road, so they can get from town to town very quickly, and I'm right next to the exit. I couldn't make it more convenient for them if I tried. So that really, really helps, making it as convenient as possible, because a huge reason why people don't exercise and why they don't diet correctly and why they're out of shape is just the inconvenience involved with it. The inconvenience to them, I think it's well worth any sort of extra time, but people don't want to really go out of their way for something, and so I tried to make it as painless as possible when it comes to commuting and being close to home and stuff like that.
And it sounds like you got a really good deal on the rent, because as an outsider, I've always thought New York was really insane when it comes to renting. So was that
downstate? Upstate New York's a completely different ballgame.
Okay.
Yeah, downstate, if it were anywhere near Manhattan or the New Jersey, I mean, it would probably be 3 times this. But upstate, the capital region area of New York. It's just relatively reasonable. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely stole this place. I'm not going to lie. I definitely did.
And
But it was a place that's been here. It was vacant for about 2 years. Nobody was in here. So I think that kind of affected how my negotiation with the rent as well.
so once you located the area that you desired using the demographic data, how did you then go about sourcing the actual venue to be? Like, what services did you use to find that? Was it just, drive out to the area and find a place, or was there other websites?
So all it was, Lawrence, I drove and I looked around. I had an idea in my head, where or how, where it should be located. So it really was, it was a little bit of luck. And, unfortunately, when it comes to success in business, there is absolutely luck involved. There has to be. So in this aspect, I got very lucky. I kind of drove. I was literally driving around looking for small shopping centers in relatively suburban neighborhoods, close to the exit. and this one was right here. And there was actually 2 spots for rent, so I chose the bigger one. So it was just me driving around, seeing a for rent sign, called them up, met him that day, and I just went for it, and then that was it.
Awesome. So let's talk about you've obviously been you as you were saying earlier, you're almost at sort of max capacity, at least for you, from a personal training point of view, and you've not even been in business all that long, so it's obviously grown really fast. So what have you done to do that?
I wonder myself, honestly. So personal training, especially from what I've noticed, private studios, it's largely referral based. So that's why, in the beginning, I would let people, buy sessions, as they trained, workout to workout basis, because I knew when they were satisfied, they would tell people. People love to tell other people about how tremendous their workout was. It's something that people just enjoy bragging about. So I knew that. So I tried to get as many people in here as possible. I did a lot of free sessions as well. I would give people 2-3 free sessions in the beginning. Just have them do it. So the more people who would train this way, the more they would tell other people, the more referrals would come in. And I think that is the majority of what helped the business grow. I do a little bit of Facebook marketing. And again, like I said, I chose a pretty good location. I chose a relatively busy small shopping center, shopping mall. There's probably about 5 or 6 stores here, next to 2 businesses which get a lot of foot traffic. To my right is the busiest pizzeria in this town. And 5 p.m., the parking lot is packed. People are going in and out getting pizza and feeling bad about themselves. And then they see BioFit personal training 30 minutes a week. They look at their slice of pizza and they say, why am I eating this when I could be training once a week and being in shape? So I've actually had people come into my studio carrying their pizza.
You shredded.
And book an appointment with me. Yeah. So that was great. When I saw the pizzeria, I was like, this is great. Because a lot of people go to a pizzeria knowing that eating pizza is not very good for them. And they often, feel a little guilty about it. And just having my sign right next to them hopefully exacerbates that guilt. So, and again, I chose a good name as well. There are a lot of high intensity training studios out there, and personally, I really don't like the names. I don't think a lot of them really make any sense. Something catchy, easy to remember. Colors, I chose lime green. A lot of the walls in my studio are lime green. It's very vibrant, very energetic. And, you see lime green BioFit. It's very hard to forget the symbol and the name with the double helix DNA symbol as well. So I think a lot of it came down to, it's a very intriguing name. It's a very intriguing idea. You see something with a double helix, BioFit, and it says complete joint-friendly fitness in 30 minutes a week. Just all of that is so intriguing. You have to check out the website and learn more. So right below that is my website. So I do all the work for them. So I get a lot of foot traffic, and I believe that's what is second most responsible for getting a lot of new clients is the location. I have 4 very large 4.5 by 11-foot windows, and I've got vinyl signs on them. And soon I will also be writing on one of the windows. I'll be using it to write fitness tips, tips on lower back pain, fat loss, that sort of thing, common fitness tips, just to drive more attention to my window as well. So I believe Fred Hahn said this in his podcast. Location was very important. I believe he said, if you can pay a little more for, street level, do it, because it makes a huge difference. And he's exactly right. I mean, the location of the last studio I was at was horrible. Nobody even knew it was there. It was an old financial advising building, and bad sign. So making it visible in a location with heavy traffic, obviously, business 101 is definitely a good strategy for a studio like this.
Cool. So just in terms of like the progression, so like when you actually opened and started trying to get clients, what was the speed like? Like how many did you get in like the first few weeks or the first month, and how long did it take you to get, I guess, break even effectively in terms of cash flow?
Yeah, so I calculated in terms of cash flow to break even, I had to do, I think it was 1.1 sessions a day. So I was like, so it seemed that it wasn't very difficult. It wasn't about 1.1 or 2 sessions a day. So in the beginning, yeah, it's slow. But again, I put my sign up early, so people were intrigued, and most of my clients in the beginning came from employees in the shopping center, which is another huge plus. A lot of my clients are employees right here. A couple of the hairstylists next to me, they have a small break. They come in, they get their butt kicked, they go back to work, and then they complain that they can't hold their hair dryer anymore. So being, most of my clients in the beginning were employees, and then they're so satisfied with the workout, they tell other employees, who tell friends, who tell family, and then it starts to snowball. So in the beginning, my first week I did like 4 or 5 sessions. Second week, maybe a little more. It was by, towards the end of May is when it might have been the beginning of May. I think it was about the beginning of May. It took me about a month to really allow the snowball effect to take place, and I really started to grow rapidly. So, I was breaking even, 4 weeks into it, I would say 3 or 4 weeks into it. So my first month, yeah, I got it going fast enough to at least break even. I might have been making a little bit of profit,
That's
but
amazing.
I really started making profit about the end of May.
That's so cool. So it's like you went, you opened shop, you had the website, and then all your business was, like, as you were saying, footfall, people going to the website, and then referrals. So really, obviously there's a lot of noise made about social media these days. I'm very skeptical of it. I think it's good for certain purposes, but you didn't need any of that. Is that, well, aside from maybe those people communicating with each other using social media, so that word of mouth, but you didn't need to necessarily be active on it yourself in the beginning. Would that be fair? Or?
No, that's accurate. Yeah, I have a Facebook page for my business, and I post things occasionally, and I will boost them. But what I've noticed when it comes to Facebook, you absolutely, if you're doing a Facebook post or Facebook marketing for fitness, you have to use a picture. You have to use a model. That's just how it works. I've tried things like charts and graphs because those sort of things interest me. Data interests me. Evidence interests me. But nobody cares besides the exercise nerds. So I noticed those don't respond well. If I put a picture of me doing a pull down, tons and tons of clicks. So I use that. I used it in the beginning a little bit. I do it once every few weeks just to get a couple new submissions. But for the most part, I really don't. I don't really use any social media marketing. No Instagram really, because it's just not really worth my time at this point. And it's not worth, not that it's expensive, but it's not even worth the couple of dollars that it takes. Because if you provide people with a service they enjoy and give them what they need, they're going to tell everybody about it, from what I've seen at least. So referrals are the way to go. And also, of course, I do give incentive to give referrals. I give people a free session. If they refer somebody and they buy a package, free session goes to them. And I consistently remind them of this, I'll tell you.
Okay. That's a very good tactic, because that works well for you.
They will forget. Yeah, they will forget. So you have to consistently remind them, and it especially works towards the end of their package, because they'll ask me, "How many do I have left?" "Oh, we got 2 left." But if you refer someone, you can have 3 left, and then they start brainstorming. Who would benefit from this? Who would like this? And that's when they start to come in. See, these are just things that you learn over time.
Yeah.
And when I about a year or so ago, not quite a year, but a while back, I realized I knew these things. And I just saw the way, the old studio I worked at, not Inform. Inform is conducted brilliantly. That one's hard to compete with. But, the old studio, the first studio I worked at, I just saw a lot of the way things were done were just completely wrong in my eyes. I just saw a way that it should be done, and I knew it would work, so I just kind of carried it out on my own. And sure enough, most of what I believed needed to be done in a business like this does work. It works very well. So, such as, go ahead.
No, sorry, go on. You go.
Well, just such as like a vibrant interior, a catchy name and sign, those sort of things. They work very, very, very well. And, the old place, Studio 2020, people would ask, well, what does that mean? And I didn't even know. I don't know. It doesn't, make any sense. But
80/20 made sense.
Yeah. So, in the bad location, boring colors, it was like red, blue, and yellow. People, respond differently to lime green. Lime green's hard to miss. And, biofit, it's fitness based on our biology. Very simple. So I thought that went a long way.
It's really, as I said, I like the website. I like the branding. Did you come up with that all yourself, or did you have some outside input? Did you do some research on what would be effective in terms of grabbing people's attention?
No, I did it all myself. I just kind of intrinsically knew that that's what needed to be done. It's been floating around in my head for about a year. I knew that would be effective. I don't know how, but I just kind of knew.
Why haven't you used pictures of your? I know you've said before about how you don't like to lean on using your own physique for marketing too much, as effective as it can be. So why? I've noticed you haven't got pictures of yourself on the website, or at least I haven't seen them.
There is a page.
Or part
that says trainers.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, there's a page that says trainers, and a little description about me. A testimonial type thing by me, and just say what's called an actor's headshot, a muscle tech picture, and a picture of me from an Under Armour ad, and that that's all I use. I intentionally do not use shirtless pictures because it gives off the wrong vibe about what this is about. This isn't.
I agree. Yeah.
This isn't get ripped in 30 days. This is long-lasting, sustainable health and fitness. This isn't something you do for 2 weeks. This is something you do for 2 years or longer, hopefully. So I didn't want to give off that sort of look to my website. I didn't want to, and there are so many gyms, exercise protocols, studios, hot yoga, whatever the heck that is. There's so many things like that out there that you need to be a little different. And if you got pictures of some punk with his shirt off on your on the website, that's not going to separate yourself from the rest of them. Mm-hmm. Being a published model does help, but choosing the pictures wisely, not to look like a meathead, is I thought was very important.
Are you still doing the modeling on the side occasionally?
I do. Yeah, I do. One or two, I guess you call them gigs a year. But just as they come. I don't really place too much emphasis on it. If they call me and someone wants to book me for something, I'm there. But other than that,
do they pay well? Is that?
Oh yeah, definitely. A few $1,000s for a shoot usually.
So then this is interesting to me because I've moved to Ireland, and I have a registered limited company in the UK. So I'm learning all about, what's the best way to structure things and cash flow and all of that type of thing. And I was just curious, when you do that stuff, the modeling stuff, do you put that through on your new LLC, or is that through something else? Like, how do you manage that? If that makes sense.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't really claim that under my LLC. That's just kind of more of a personal thing because I really don't take in enough income from that to even kind of contribute it to my, health and fitness business.
Yeah.
So, that's more like a side gig kind of thing. It's not substantial enough in my life to even consider it a job or a business. It's something just I kind of do sometimes, really.
Yeah. Sounds like awesome return on investment, though, from what you're saying.
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, if it, people are under the impression that, you need to measure and weigh your food on a daily basis and go to the gym for 4 hours a day in order to maintain a physique to do that. In that case, it is an awful return on investment.
Yes.
But to, fortunately, to not have to devote really too much effort into maintaining the physique that allows me to do that. It's an incredible return on investment. I mean, I just maintain, it's about consistency. I just eat the right foods consistently. I don't like any of the bad foods. So, over a long period of time, that results in me being a relatively healthy, fit individual. I train as much as I need to, no more, no less. And I maintain a good enough physique to be able to do it, and it helps me with my business. But I'm not putting a whole lot of effort into growing massive muscles anymore, or getting ripped. I'm happy where I am, and I'm just continuing to do what I need to do to stay that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like you're being paid to get really good professional photographs that you can then use for your business.
Yeah. I know, it's incredible.
Which is
because
great.
but many people have not met an Under Armour model, so it's very intriguing to people. Oh my God, you modeled for Under Armour? Yeah, and I did it doing high intensity training. Why don't you come in and try it?
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, I don't quite phrase it that way because that's a little misleading. But
yes, yeah.
I mean, if they ask me how I train, I tell them. But I don't say I became a model from high intensity training. I would be a model either way.
Yeah. So I think we've done some good work here in terms of creating a case study for your business, which is, I think what I really wanted to do is give the listeners who are considering starting fitness businesses, or more specifically high intensity training businesses, that they can really get a detailed view on how to do that and where the pitfalls are. Now, going back to kind of so there's a bit more I want to talk about that, and then if we've got time, we can go into your training and diet and stuff like that, or we can always do a part 3 to cover that separately if you can. Okay, so going back to kind of marketing methods. So you did mention you have dabbled in Facebook. What's your return been like on using Facebook for marketing? And are there any other kind of like internet, I guess, social media platforms that you're using with good results, or can you kind of elaborate?
The only one I'm using is Facebook, and it's tough. I normally ask when I get a new consultation how they heard about me, but sometimes I forget. And it is on my client form, but sometimes I don't fill it out. But in terms of return on investment for Facebook, I'm not really sure how many submissions or emails I get, based on what is seen on Facebook. But what I can say is, there have been a handful of people where it just scrolls up on their feed. But also one strategy I've used is I joined a local chamber of commerce, and what they do for you is if you're a member, I'm not exactly sure what they do because I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to analytics and internet marketing, but they do something that allows your page to show up closer to the top of a Google search locally. So believe it or not, plenty of my clients have come from simply Googling personal trainers, Albany, New York. So I think that doing something that will allow you to, show up higher up or closer on a Google search is awesome. But in terms of Facebook alone, I'm not really sure. I do it, just kind of send it out and try it. But I think I've spent total, since I opened, maybe like, I don't know, $150, $200. And I have gotten, 4 or 5 clients through Facebook, which obviously paid that off.
Yeah.
So the return on investment is really good, especially for, a personal training studio, because a lot of times if you get one client, you paid for it. So it's definitely worth dabbling in. I literally only do $10, a $10 boost per week. And I kind of narrowed down the demographics, I think 35 to 60-year-old, within 10 miles, attorney, whatever sort of thing. And, and so it seems to work, but I wouldn't use it as a primary marketing tool. What I would focus on is focus on the service, really, and the location. I mean, if you're providing a good service and people are impressed and people are happy, they will talk about it and they will refer people, because everybody knows they need to exercise and nobody wants to spend the time to do it. So if you can convince someone with a decent, scientifically literate explanation on how this works, then they're going to be impressed enough to try it and tell others to try it. So that way, they don't have to spend 5 hours a week in the gym. They're happy. They'll give it a shot. So I think, the high intensity training protocol sells itself, really, and markets itself, as long as you can make clients happy.
Did you, at the start, were you also kind of picking the phone up and calling your previous clients and people you knew who might be interested?
I did a little bit, and I got a couple of them. But, the old studio it's about 25 minutes away from my new one. So what I've noticed was, people were going there, the people who were going there lived relatively close, but no further than 15 minutes. So when I would tell people where my studio is, I said, "Oh, Clifton Park, it's kind of far." So after a while, I started to build up the clientele where I didn't really need to call them. And some of them, found out and came back. Some of them who I've trained for, over a year, I reached back out to them, and they've discontinued their training altogether for one reason or another. And, some of them I can't even get back in here just to get moving again. So, but, for the most part, I didn't really take any of my old clients. And, I kind of follow, when I was speaking to Adam one time and his journey when he opened his first studio, he intentionally didn't take any of his own clients because he wanted to do it on his own and he didn't want to be that guy.
Oh, right.
And so I kind of took his advice because I thought that was brilliant and kind of followed the same direction.
What's the, you mentioned you use some scheduling software. I use Schedule once for the podcast, which is amazing. What scheduling software do you use in your business?
I use something called MindBody.
Oh, right.
So it's used. A lot of personal trainers use it. Small studios, yoga studios. I think even hairstylists. That's where it allows you to schedule appointments, add products, add pricing. It sends automatic email notifications, contact info. It pretty much does everything for you. Accepts all types of payment. So it does absolutely everything for me, and there's an app on my phone. So,
Oh, wow.
I can schedule appointments on my phone, take payment on my phone. I do most of it on the computer, but it's extremely convenient, and I'm very happy with it.
How much does that cost? Is that monthly?
I think it's $80 or $90 a month.
Okay. So it's not cheap, but then again, it's pretty sophisticated from what you...
Yeah. it's not cheap, but it's entirely worth every penny because it makes everything so much easier. It takes all the stress and thought out of accepting payments, having all these different credit card payment structures, and writing down appointments in a book or putting them in your Google Calendar. That it's just everything's right there. It's much more convenient.
What is so talking about time management now? So in terms of your day, how you prioritize that kind of thing. Can you give us a snapshot of what your most kind of productive day looks like and how you, prioritize the most important activities in your business?
Well, I'm absolutely a very early riser, and it's funny because when I was younger, I used to sleep till noon, but then as I got older and I realized I needed to get shit done, I started waking up at 5. So I wake up, probably around 5 a.m. Sometimes I have a 6:30 a.m. session or a 7 a.m. session, depending on which day it is. I get up very early, throw on a pot of coffee, drink just a black coffee, and I like to wake up by reading. So I'll find something to read, whether it's exercise based or I read a lot of stuff on biology. I read a lot of Richard Dawkins, which is kind of strange to some people, but I find all of his books very, very interesting. So might wake up, read some Richard Dawkins, drink some coffee, and then head over to the studio and get everything ready. I show up about 30 minutes early to get the air conditioning going. Make it nice and cool in here for them. I keep it around 62 to 65 degrees, for the purpose of them not sweating too much. And for my first client, and then from there on out, it's pretty much back-to-back clients with maybe an hour or a half-hour break in between throughout the entire day. And if I do have some downtime, normally I'm working on a blog post or just kicking back with my dog because I take him to work with me every day. And then it's kind of back-to-back clients all day until about 8:30 p.m.
What's the average session length?
I schedule 30-minute appointments. I do train one woman who has Parkinson's, and she's in a wheelchair and she can't walk very well, so I schedule an hour for her, just for the sake of it takes more time to get her in and out of the machines. But for the most part, unless they have some sort of disability, I will be taking on a new client with MS as well, and I'm going to schedule an hour for him as well. But unless they have some sort of disability, which will make the workout last a little longer, it's usually half-hour appointments, and we're usually done a little bit before.
So when does the workday kind of finish for you normally?
Yeah, usually around 8 p.m. and the workday finishes. I go home. Sometimes, either I'll do my workout, and this is why kind of my training has been stretched out to every 7 to 10 days, is because starting the day that early and getting finished up training people at around 8 p.m. Your motivation to work out is gone. So I normally don't have it. Normally I'm just head home, make a good dinner, and right off to bed. I'm laying flat by before 10 p.m.
That's a long day.
It's a long day, but and if you want to do any business, if you want to start a business and make it grow and be successful, you've got to put in the hours. It's not going to do it itself. And I tell myself that quite often too. If I sometimes I'll get irritated that I've been spending this much time here and I haven't really had a life. But then I tell myself, dude, you signed up for this. This is what you want. Suck it up, do it, stop complaining, because in the end, it will be worth it. Or you can go sit in a cubicle making garbage money for the rest of your life and wishing that you've done it. And that's what you're not doing. So suck it up and get it done. Yeah,
that's really good advice, actually, because there are, having done this myself in terms of going full time on my business, there are moments where it's difficult and it's challenging and it's you're struggling to find motivation, but it's not going to be like easy every day. It's not it's not
right. And Lawrence, what I've noticed as well is there are plenty of extremely difficult days. I mean, a lot of the times I'm very stressed out because you're always wondering, how am I going to sustain this? Is this going to work? What's it going to look like a year down from the road? And the best what I found to help the most is simply not worry. Just sit back, let it happen. You know what you got to do. Continue to do it, and trust that your efforts and your drive will make it work. And I noticed, at times where I would stress out and worry if this was going to, work out, or, I got to bring in this amount of income to cover this overhead. How am I going to do that? Normally I would stress out for absolutely no reason because it would end up taking care of itself. So what I've learned now is to just sit back and relax. and just do what I got to do and try to worry as little as possible.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy. So when you're training clients, obviously most of the time, that's when most of your time is being invested.
Yes.
What are the other things that because what I find personally is if I don't, this is kind of, I'm borrowing this from Tim Ferriss, but if I don't schedule the fun, I can sometimes work instead of, doing something that more like just enjoying the moment and be doing something for recreation, and I can end up working silly hours. So what do you do to ensure that, I guess, if you've got other time that you want to spend working, how do you decide what to do? And secondly, how do you do you schedule fun in advance so that you don't overwork, or how do you manage that?
I don't. And because I have this philosophy in my head, because I am young and I know that I've got the energy and the means to work almost every waking hour. So I'm going to do that now, because I'm not going to be able to do that when I'm 40. So my view is work hard now as much as you can. If people want to come in Sunday morning, I'm coming. If people want to come in Saturday morning, I'm coming. And I will structure any sort of leisure activity around my client's schedule. So a lot of the times I only have, 4 or 5 Saturday sessions, because people also don't like working out on Saturdays, let alone training people on Saturdays, and often not much on Sunday. But for the most part, if people want to come in, I never say no. And that's what I've noticed as well. I knew that, if I wanted this business to be successful and I wanted it to grow, you have to cater to the client's needs. And so a lot of the times, there is no night of drinking anymore. Like when I was in my early 20s, that's fine. Because what I've noticed is I want this business to grow and be successful a hell of a lot more than I want a couple of beers at a bar on Saturday night. So that's what keeps me motivated. And the fun thing, the thing is, this is fun for me. So I feel as though I'm not missing out on fun, because most of the time, if I'm not here training people, I would just be reading or learning about exercise anyway. My mind is fully engulfed in this. It's a mild obsession. It's, what I think about most of the day. I'm constantly in my own head trying to figure out, like, what the heck makes muscle grow? What the heck, and coming up with all these things and effective ways of performing exercises that, I think that's what made me, pretty decent at this, is just having a mild obsession and just constantly wanting to learn, because I'm just constantly looking. So outside of here, it's probably something to do with exercise anyway. So I enjoy being here and working very much. So it's almost like I'm having fun and work intertwine at the same time.
When I interviewed Keith Norris a long time ago, who's serial entrepreneur, founder of PaleoFX and some other companies, we talked about how to prevent your hobby from becoming boring. And one of the issues when you become a personal trainer is a lot of personal trainers find they get bored of the monotony of having to do the same thing every hour of every day, which is training people. So what Keith did or does is, obviously he has a few businesses and he kind of diversifies the way he spends his time, although they're all kind of, they're all interrelated. They're all health focused type, they're either supplements or training or diet or something like that. So how do you ever find that you feel like that? Do you ever get bored? And if so, how do you combat that?
Not really. Maybe it's because it's early stages of this, but right now I don't feel as though I don't feel as though my hobby has become boring. I feel it's a hobby. It's also a craft. But currently, I'm not bored of it. I'm still mildly obsessed with it. I want to just know more and learn more and improve my craft as much as I can and as fast as I can. And I think that is so damn exciting that I couldn't possibly be bored. So maybe somewhere down the line, it may get a little monotonous. But my intention is not to do 60 sessions a week for the rest of my life. My intention is to spread and open more high intensity training studios in order to get the proper information out there and allow people to exercise in a safe, effective, time efficient manner, because people need that. And for one reason or another, these things have not, the high intensity training business, so to speak, has not grown that much in the past, since Arthur Jones. And I think it's time for that. I think somebody needs to make this happen. So I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to try to spread this knowledge. I'm going to try to spread the service as best I can and open various studios. And eventually, what I will be doing down the road is overseeing the studios, training, of course, as well, because I do enjoy doing it, but overseeing all the other studios as well. So at some point, I will turn, I'm sure, more into an entrepreneur, businessman type person, and less into just a trainer. So I think that'll be exciting down the road. Maybe it'll happen at the perfect time where training becomes monotonous. Who knows? That's probably when I will begin to do that.
Now, you were just talking about, obviously, high intensity training is still something that a lot of people struggle to understand, and equally, it's very. People have found it difficult to push the message and grow that business. So how do you currently deal? You've got someone comes through the door, they're really skeptical. How do you convince them that it's the most effective method, or how do you get them to just put those preconceived notions aside and give you a go?
I absolutely love it when people come in skeptical. It's like a circus. It's so fun for me, because as other trainers might agree with me, when you've been doing this a certain amount of time, you get the same questions, and then you learn the best way to answer these questions. So it's the same question every time. Why not cardio? Well, let me begin. And I go through a whole slew of scientific information and physiology of why your body doesn't know the difference between throwing a rock in the air and jogging. All it knows is muscular tension and fatigue. And then they go, oh, wow, that actually makes sense. So and then I explain, how cardiovascular improvements occur, and that you don't necessarily need to walk or run in order for this to happen. So what I've noticed is the best way to, we try to keep it as layman as possible, but I find that when you throw in a little bit of physiology, it tends to grab their attention more, because now you look like what the hell you're talking about. And so what I do is I give them a little physiology. I will draw pictures for them. I don't care. I will give them a little bit of physiology and explain with scientific evidence or physiological evidence or a physiological explanation of the reason behind their question. And I find that works tremendously. And when you can show them a little bit of science, they tend to have a little more faith in you and trust you a little more. And then they begin to believe you. And then what I do is I put them on a leg extension, and then they feel the most ridiculous muscular burn they've ever felt in their entire life. And they're convinced. And then we go through the rest of the workout. So I intentionally put them on a leg extension first in a consultation, because they have never felt the burn like that in their life. And some people like that. But again, there are some people who do not like muscular burn, and you approach it differently. But for the type of client I think you're talking about, someone who might be into fitness and can't believe that you could work out 30 minutes a week, what I do is I go into very basic physiology, and I will write things down, or I'll draw a picture. I'll explain the difference between slow, intermediate, and fast twitch muscle fiber. I'll even go into myokines if I need to, if they're not convinced yet. But most of the time they leave here relatively convinced, as long as they hear a little bit of scientific evidence, to support what I'm saying. And there have been times where I have referenced James Steele's and James Fisher's research, and I said, okay, just read this paper. And some people do, or if I just bring up the paper on my computer, then maybe that's enough. But yeah, it's very difficult. But at the same time, they're looking at my physique as I'm explaining this to them, and it helps. It helps quite a bit.
Yeah, got you. So, and also, how do you? So, when you've got a client come in and you want to, they're not like like me. Like I might be a bit of an outlier in that I kind of I want to go as hard as I can, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I might not need the motivation that some people need. So how do you prepare a client's mind for training in that sense and make sure that they perform at the best of their ability, if you do?
Yeah, so some people, as you mentioned, some people do not like to really push themselves. I have different ways of handling this. As soon as the exercise starts to get hard, their form starts to break. I've developed various different techniques of talking them through the exercise. I mean, when I train someone, it's very much like physical therapy, I would say, because I'm very hands-on in talking them through the exercise. So, with some people, when they start to struggle and they start to breathe heavy and they start to say, it hurts, I say something like, you've got 30 seconds left. Or I'll say, when I know about 3 to 4 repetitions is going to hit them. So I train people with a time under load. I look for them to reach failure around 1 minute and 30 seconds, most people. So based on the weight they did previously, I would assume they'd be a little bit over 1 minute 30 seconds. So I kind of anticipate maybe that's 3 or 4 repetitions as soon as they really start to get into the difficult repetitions. And so I'll tell them you got 3 or 4 more left. And then I'll say, now, I'll use encouraging words like ease it down, gradually push the weight forward, and now contract as hard as you can. Harder, 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 harder. Pause, control it down. And I'll say, that was great. Now do another one just like that. Continue to push, continue, that sort of thing. I talk them through the entire thing. So that way they're relatively distracted by my speaking. And I find that, meticulously instructing people and talking them through the exercise helps motivate them through the entire exercise. I think standing there and just kind of watching them do it, as soon as it starts to burn, they're just going to set it down. But, a lot of the times I found that the best way to motivate people isn't necessarily to amp them up. I find that doesn't work very well. I find that being encouraging and telling them that they're doing fantastic, telling them that was a perfect repetition, telling them that we're almost to muscle failure, that sort of thing encourages them to keep on going.
Yeah, I always found that what was really helpful for me when I was being trained by people like Simon and Ted and Adam is just being really smart with the direction. So and I'm sure you do this, like correcting my form so if my face isn't relaxed or I'm cheating a little bit, or I'm moving too quickly or my turnarounds aren't smooth. Correcting those things. And I train with my partner, so I am that personal trainer for her, and I do that with her, and she says it works really, really well, and she thinks I'm very good at it. And I still do kind of flirt with the idea of one day having my own setup, I guess in Ireland or in the UK or something like that. Something I do want to do.
There's no reason you can't, Lawrence. There's no reason. Yeah. There's a million ways. There's a million reasons not to do something.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. You're right. So. Okay, so I know we're coming close to. You'll need to wrap up soon. Are you interested in doing a part 3 to cover, I guess, all the stuff we haven't talked about regarding high intensity training and fat loss and diet and stuff like that?
Absolutely, I would love to.
Cool, because I think I wanted to keep this one kind of business centric because I didn't want to start dipping in and out of that stuff when we weren't going to necessarily be able to really talk about it. So hence why I've kind of stuck on this kind of line of questioning. But I did want to ask you, so you got a bit of time left, so we're good for sort of 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, cool, okay. So in terms of like, I guess, business, what is one of your favorite personal failures, or specifically a failure that led in some way to a success further down the road, if you can think of any?
Personal failure. Well, funny story, actually. So when I got out of college, like most people, I just needed a job. So I became an insurance underwriter. I think I may have explained this. And I was there for about 7-8 months or so. And I decided that this was not what I wanted to do. So what I simply did was I packed my stuff up and I walked out of there. And I never went back. I never told anyone I was leaving. I just cold turkey quit. I ignored all their phone calls. with the intention of burning every bridge possible so I could never go back. And as a result, I had no choice but to find something that I enjoyed to do, because I knew that doing a job that I did not enjoy was going to result in quite a miserable life. So I created a scenario where, going back to, unfortunately, this sounds terrible, but I created a scenario to where using my resume was virtually impossible because my references were shot. So that way I had to do it on my own. I had to become an entrepreneur and create my own source of income, which is something I'd wanted to do all along. I mean, everybody, both of my parents, all of my family members, they're all entrepreneurs. But for some reason, we grow up or go through college with the idea that we need to work for a company and work our way up the ladder, which I think is ridiculous. I didn't want to do that. So that I guess you could say leaving work and not telling anybody and just cold turkey quitting and burning all my bridges was, I guess I wouldn't call it a failure, but it was a very risky way to get into what I wanted to do, because I told myself, what would I rather be doing if I wasn't here? And that was anything related to exercise. So that's what I just kind of, for lack of better terms, grew a set of balls, got up, and just went for it.
What do you
look back?
What do your parents do?
Both my father owns hair salons and my mother is a hairstylist.
Oh, okay. But she's an entrepreneur in that she works for herself, does she?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I mean, they're now divorced, so they opened the salons / tanning salon. There was a hair salon / tanning salon. They opened them, a while back, and then since being divorced, my mother just works as I don't know what they would call it, just a private contractor, hairstylist, booth renter thing. Yeah. So, and then, my uncle is, he's dabbled in so many businesses and was a large business influence on me and taught me a lot, from owning clubs to MRI centers. He's done everything. He's taught me quite a bit too. So he was a large influence for just, going big.
Cool. What have you changed your mind about in the last year in business? Or about business?
About business. I've changed my mind that social media presence for business is essential. I don't think it is. I think for some businesses, maybe, such as the supplement companies or something like that, but I don't think that you need to really work very, very hard on establishing a social media presence. I could be wrong, but from my personal experience, the return on investment, I guess the return on investment is good, but it didn't seem to work as well as many people suggest. And I feel that the people suggesting you need social media presence are probably the people trying to sell you something to create your social media presence. So, I'm very, very, very skeptical of a lot of things. And that's one of them I've become skeptical about, simply because it didn't show what I expected it to in my own business. And again, that could be, my own fault. I just didn't do it correctly. But I still think, for many businesses, social media is kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, it's something I haven't quite made my mind up on, because it's very useful at times. Like I get a lot of traffic from Facebook, and but I also think it can be the biggest distraction. And again, like you're saying, it depends on your business, right? Because I feel like it can often distract me from my creative. I mean, this right here, talking to you, publishing this episode, is the most productive thing I can do, because this is, this is the way I should be spending most of my time, or at least my kind of most creative energy. And social media, what going on that is, it can be just a huge distraction, even though I am, I guess, talking to listeners and building those relationships up, which is great. I just can't help but sometimes think that the more vast the social media platforms get, that they increase in number, and the more complicated it gets, it's just
I think difficult. It may depend on the demographic of your product or service. Of course, it depends on that, and it also depends on the business itself. There are plenty of successful businesses around with 10 likes on their Facebook page. Okay, so I don't think that it's that important. But again, it depends on what your service or your product is. I mean, if it's a pair of yoga pants, you're going to want to be on Instagram, but if it's a personal training service, I mean, you're going to want to maybe use Facebook. And that's the thing, certain demographics use different platforms, but for my demographic, which is, mostly baby boomers, they don't really use all that social media stuff. And if anything, they're using Facebook. So yeah, I guess it depends, but as you said, devoting all that time to it, I don't want to be looking at my phone all day. That drives me crazy. I hate seeing that. Getting text next, staring at your phone all day, and I don't want to do that. Checking Facebook and seeing how my analytics are doing, or checking how many Instagram likes I've gotten. I don't want to do that, almost because I just spitefully don't want to be in that pool. But and also at the same token, I just don't think it's that effective. I think if you provide a really good service, you're charismatic, and you know what the hell you're doing, I think everything else is going to take care of itself.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. You're making me think. I've recently put a survey out. And for all those listening, if you want to take part in that survey, that would be a huge, huge help. And that will be in the blog post for this episode. And basically, I'm doing it to try and understand, I guess, the demographic of my listeners better. And it's just a very short survey, takes less than 3 minutes to do, and it's about 10 questions, most of which are multiple choice. And it's really interesting because I know a fair number of my listeners are kind of within the 40 to 60 age bracket, which makes sense in part because, like you're saying, a lot of those people are on Facebook, right? But they're not necessarily on Instagram or Twitter.
Right.
So yeah, I've just kind of like connected those dots as you were saying that. So that's interesting. And I'm excited to learn a lot more about my audience, because then I can obviously, make sure that the podcast is serving them as well as it can.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so final question for you, and then we'll just get on to your contact details and stuff like that, Jay.
Okay.
What change in your life or behavioral modification are you most proud of in the last year or in recent memory? And which habits are you trying to change at the moment, if any?
There are probably a couple. Like one that I mentioned before. I have found a way to be able to control my response to stress. So, my response, instead of allowing myself to get stressed out and worry about things, I found a way to be able to control my thoughts, take a step back, and just kind of relax. And I found that has helped immensely with business and just quality of life as well, because a lot of the times, most of the time, when people worry, they worry about things that haven't happened or things that may not happen. And there's a very small percentage of the time you're worrying about something that's actually happened, So I try not to dwell on those sort of things and try to remain as, calm and relaxed and just as possible. Because again, if I'm stressed out or worrying about something, business related or anything like that, it's going to show when I'm training a client. It's going to show in my mood, even if I try to hide it as best as possible. So being that humble, charismatic, energetic, knowledgeable trainer is key to this business. So I cannot let that be affected by anything that happens in life. So I found a way to do that. I consciously, work on that. As well as, financially, I'm like we discussed earlier, I'm trying to become a minimalist. I think that, in this society, buying all this shit is just stupid, and I don't want to take part in it. So I bought a new pair of shoes the other day simply because my dog got mud all over my old ones, and I was trying to hold out as long as possible to not getting a new pair of shoes. And I want to change that sort of behavior. I want to be far less materialistic than I have been or my peers have been, and focus on the things in life that really matter, and as to not get distracted by all the things that don't. So that's kind of a change I'm making, is more towards minimalism and being less materialistic, as much as I can at least.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm very into, I guess, the movement of minimalism myself, and I try and be as minimalist as I can. It certainly made moving to Ireland easier in that I had very, very little stuff to bring over with me, which makes I guess mobility a lot easier. Sorry, were you gonna add to that?
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay, cool. So, Jay, what is the best way or for people to find out more about you these days and contact you?
Sure. You can visit my website. That's www.biofitny, as in the initials for New York.com. And there I have, blog posts. I've got some information about me. You can message me through there, or you can email me at biofitny@gmail.com. And please, if anyone is listening, check out my Instagram. That is J2_Vincent, and my Facebook page as well, J Vincent. I'm trying to put up a lot of stuff, some workout videos. I've had some requests for workout videos, and in the past, I'm trying to do more and more instructional videos. I've also got a YouTube channel that I'm kind of working on, and it's called J Vincent as well. I think if you just simply Google J Vincent high intensity training, I'll show up. So I'm trying to provide a little more content, a little more media, to show more people, what I'm about, and relay this high intensity training information, and try to spread it as best as possible, because I want to see it take off, and I want nothing more in life than to see, evidence-based exercise take off, and I'm going to do everything I can in order to help this movement.
That's cool. And just to reiterate what you're saying about your YouTube channel, I've really enjoyed watching your videos on there, and especially your most recent one, which if anyone's interested, and I'm sure you probably are, and you want to check out Jay's latest workout routine, you just have to go to his YouTube channel, which will be in the show notes as well, in the blog post, and you'll be able to see his full workout and his dog driving him mad. Which,
and the funny part is people were making comments, well, now that's focus, and my response is, well, I'm a minute into the set. I'm not going to let my dog fuck up my workout. So I just ignored him and just continued to push as if he wasn't there. And then again on the pull down, he was barking at me, and I just, it's because, after having enough experience, you get in such a deep mental state, such focus that, people could be throwing tomatoes at your head. You probably wouldn't even notice. So my dog was not able to distract me, and I think it really irritated him.
So it's very fun to watch, and you don't expect it. It makes it very interesting.
I was a little pissed off, but it's okay. It was good for the video.
So for all of the listeners to see all of the resource, all the links, Jay's contact information, all of that for this episode, and to see all the episodes, please go to corporatewarrior.org. And until next time, guys, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Before you head off, head on over to corpwarrior.com to get your free ebook with 6 interview transcripts with some of my top guests, including Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, and Bill Day Simone, on how to optimize muscle gain, fat loss, and overall health in an efficient, effective, and sustainable way. These transcripts are not verbatim, deliberately. Instead, they've been transcribed in an easy read format to make it more enjoyable and easier for you to quickly pick out what you need and start getting results. To get your ebook, head on over to corpwarrior.com, that's CORP warrior.com, and enter your email address. Then check your email for an email from me with a confirmation link. Once you click the link, you will be instantly redirected to a PDF version of the transcripts.